Did you have any run-ins with the engineers? Any
Well, I
funny
was
stories
telling
for
you
me?
earlier about this Mr. Kilder, Paul's daddy. He was an old head engineer, was on a steam engine. That was back before they got the diesel. We was coming south at Trenton, and I wanted to drop, I think it's 3 cars I wanted to drop in a passing track and then shove them on down to a spot in the house track at Trenton. But it was kind of uphill and on a curvature track. And I gave the engineer a signal to drop the cars, and he flagged me down, called me up on the engine, Mr. Kilder did. And he said, "Boy, we never have dropped any cars in there." He said, it's uphill, it's too hard. And I said, "Well, we'll be here all day if we don't. We're gonna do it." And so I made him drop those cars in there, and we did drop the cars in there. But he was a contrary old rascal. But later on, I worked with his son, Paul Kilder, he's already gone on, passed on. Was one of the best engineers the railroad ever had. He was really smooth. He could handle a 200-car train, air on it without tearing it up, which we had a lot that couldn't. And,
They would what, break couplers and stuff?
oh yeah. If you didn't handle that air just right, if you put the air on and it would, well, it'd tear the train in two, break the knuckles. We had a fellow by the name of Irvin Barnes, and right after we got the diesels, we had 150 cars. We were on Cairo River Bridge going north, down off the bridge. And stop, after you get on the north side of the bridge, you start dropping down a hill. And Irvin put the brake on, and he started to let it off. I said, "Irvin, if you let that brake off, you're gonna tear the train up right here." And that's when the IC ran a lot of passenger trains, and we would have had everything blocked, which we did. And Irvin told me, "Sit down over that brakeman." He said, "I'll run the engine, you do the braking." He let the brake off. We got 2 knuckles, 150 cars behind the engine and one about 75 cars. It was cold and the wind was blowing off the Ohio River up on that bridge. Herbie Hawks was the conductor, and old Jim McKenzie was the flagman. And the wind was blowing, I could hear him cursing when he come off the caboose. But anyway, we were there about an hour, but we had the Panama Limited and had 2 passenger trains waiting to get across there. But the IC back then had a switch engine on duty at Cairo, and they brought us 2 knuckles up it was double track. They come up the other track as far as they could where we was coming off of the bridge, and helped us get those knuckles in and get the train back together. And we finally got it back together and got off. It took us over an hour.
Did the conductor say anything or do anything to the engineer for doing all that?
Well, he used a lot of bad language. He cussed him out. Told him he wasn't much of an engineer, and he caused us a lot of trouble there. But Irvin, he never was much of an engineer. He while I was in the Navy, I come home on leave. My mother had an operation. I think it was an appendix operation or something. But anyway, they let me come home. And they had a bad derailment at just north of Jackson. It's what's the name of that? I forget the name of the road. But anyway, it's just north of Jackson. Irvin Barnes was on the second end. There was double heading, 2 steam engines. And there was a train just ahead of them. And I don't remember who was on that engineer on that train ahead of them, but the conductor was Vernon Lawrence and the flagman was Ralph Reeder. And the engineer on the lead engine, I think his name was Harris, but Irvin was on the second engine. And they were running light. And the train ahead of them that Mr. Lawrence and Reeder was flagging on was a heavy train. And they was coming up Jackson Hill slow. And they had a rear end collision there. He split about 16 cars, and Irvin was pushing. Harris said he tried to slow him down and he had the engine wide open, pushing.
So let me get this right. The two engines.
But anyway, they didn't. Reeder said he fused-e'd them. He was throwing fusees off, but they said they didn't see him.
So let me clarify. There's two engines. The lead engineer saw the train ahead. The second engine behind him didn't. Is that what you're telling me?
No.
Okay.
The Irvin Barnes, the engineer on the second engine, he never would shut off. He's supposed to shut off when the front engine shuts off. He kind of hand signaled, he'll tell him, but he wouldn't do it. He's in a hurry to get home, you know, you kept pushing him. But anyway, they ran into this caboose, turned over about 16 cars, and laid both steam engines over in that ditch on the side.
Did it hurt either one of them?
And, yeah, Barnes was laid up for a good long while. It broke his leg and messed him up pretty good.
Did the lead engineer try and jump off to avoid the wreck?
They did get off.
Okay, the first one did, the second one didn't.
Yeah, they jumped and got off. But the second one didn't. And Ralph Reeder was fired for over a year, he and the conductor, for letting the train hit him. And
what do you mean by letting the train hit him? They didn't flag right?
he didn't use proper, they had said he didn't properly flag. He said he flew off the fusees, but anyway, poor fella, he was gun shy the rest of his railroading days. He died here about a year ago in a nursing home. He went to work in 1937, but he was the last one. No, Frank Oller died after he did, about 6 months ago. And he was the last one that was older than I am that's still living, that railroading. Ralph went to work in 1937. And let's see, Frank Oller went to work 4 months to the day before I did. He and his brother Herman.
Did all these guys start out as brakemen?
Yeah.
Okay.
They started out as brakemen. But very few did as much on the railroad as I did. I worked in every department on the railroad, just about every department.
You said except for engineer.